Hi, I'm Stephen David Horwich, and I'd like to introduce you to our upper school creative writing program. Our creative writing program is the oldest and most established part of our curriculum. It's been around for about 12 years. It's been used by many hundreds of students with great success. When I first started to write it, I was working in a private school, and I had a class with about 50 students where the courses were piloted. We had incredible success there, where we had students who were absolutely not interested in writing and were horrified when they were asked to write a paragraph or two, who after a year were writing short stories and novellas. It was really remarkable, and we knew at that point that the creative writing aspect of the curriculum worked very, very well. So, let me explain to you the essentials of the creative writing program. First of all, the creative writing program it goes for 2 to 4 years depending on the speed of the student. A student who's very interested in creative writing is going to want to do more than the required 2 lesson plans to 3 lesson plans per week. Each lesson taking about an hour of the student's time to be spread out through the week. But you may have a student who loves writing. If you do, they may want to do more writing than that. They may want to move more quickly through the program. That is perfectly fine. We want them to love writing. We want them to write. That's the entire point of a creative writing program. Now, this creative writing program is structured to create professional writers. And it's fun, it's very hands-on, it's very creative, and it's rigorous. Let me explain to you the pieces to the program. We start with Creative Writing 1. Now, it is possible if your student is doing lower school, or did lower school with Connect the Thoughts, that they already did Creative Writing 1, and if they did, they should not do it again. There's no reason for them to. It's precisely the same course, and they've already done it. I wouldn't waste their time with it. Creative Writing 2 is a specifically lower school oriented course, and I'll explain that one in a minute because you may or may not need to do that one in upper school. But if your student has not done any of our creative writing courses and is just starting upper school, they really need to do Creative Writing 1. It establishes all of the fundamentals of writing. It explains what words are, what language is, what writing is, what creative writing is, how a writer works. There are a lot of very basic ideas and principles that get established in that course that a student who's going to be doing a lot of writing, and every student does a lot of writing, really cannot do without. So we recommend very strongly that if your student has already done Creative Writing 1, they should skip it. If they have not, they should definitely do it. It's not a very long course. If you do it 2 to 3 times a week for an hour, your student's going to get through it in a month to a month and a half, give or take, and move on to the next course. Creative Writing 2 is really for students who are struggling to find ideas. It's really structured strictly for the student who's trying to develop the ability to come up with concepts or ideas that stories could be based on. If your student does not have that problem, they should not do Creative Writing 2. They should instead go directly from Creative Writing 1 to Creative Writing 3. They won't miss anything. But if your student is struggling for ideas, whether they are a lower school, upper school student, or an adult, you really should have them do Creative Writing 2. It's very fun. It's nothing but exercises where the student is being directed towards the creation of ideas and stories, and it's a very, very useful tool to get a student coming up with interesting and good ideas for stories. Creative Writing 3 really is the first big course in creative writing, and it's the first course to get into the elements of good storytelling. It goes into them in great detail. It's a lot of work. We really start to cover things like plot, character, conflict, all the elements of good storytelling get covered in Creative Writing 3. It's a very intensive introduction into what writing is. That course may take your student anywhere from a semester to a year. We've seen it happen. And your student will continue to improve at creative writing and writing in general as they go through the course, so the time is certainly useful and valuable. Creative Writing 4 does more of what Creative Writing 3 does, but takes the same concepts farther, more intensively, and demands more of the student, increasingly longer stories of more complexity. These courses through Creative Writing 4, if you're going to do 1, 3, and 4, will probably take your student 1.5 to 2 years to do at 2 to 3 lesson plans per school week. The school year being about 38 to 40 weeks a year. Now, Creative Writing 5 is the first course that starts to prepare the student for a livelihood, a career as a writer. Creative Writing 5 is called The Field, and it is a wonderful overview of the different ways a writer can make a living. There are approximately 7 or 8 different areas, media, in which the writer could conceivably work. They could work as a playwright, they could work as a screenwriter, a poet or a lyricist. They could write grant proposals and textbooks. They could write novels and short stories. They could write promotion and marketing. There are a lot of areas that a writer can work in. What Creative Writing 5 does is introduce the writer to, or student, to every area in which they could conceivably make a living as a writer, introduces them to the basic ideas of writing in each area, and asks them to write a few pieces of work approaching each of these different areas or media of writing. This gives the student a really strong overview of the ways a writer can work, of the ways a writer can make a living. It also provides them in the course an overview of the industry and how to get into the industry, how to find work, what you will have to do to find work. This course is invaluable for anybody who's serious about being a writer. Now, let's say your student gets through Creative Writing 5. They've been studying 2 to 3 years of creative writing. They're going to have other schooling. They're not done with history or science or the other areas in which they're studying, but they're finished with that part of the creative writing program. At that point, we offer what we call a master's program. We have very significant, large master's type courses in creative writing for each of the areas of expertise in which a writer could make a living. Now, these would include working as a TV writer, working as a poet or a lyricist, working in novels and short stories, writing PR and marketing, writing screenplays, writing non-creative writing, such as textbooks and grant proposals and that kind of thing. You get the general idea. These areas are specific, and each course is very specifically designed to create a professional writer in that particular area of writing. Now, I do have to tell you, these are all areas in which I personally have made a living as a writer. I wrote all the courses, and I used what I've learned in my many years of experience in these areas to teach the student. I also taught in the Professional Writers Program at USC for 1.5 years and saw how that program was constructed, and have, I think, improved upon it considerably to get a better result with your student. These are master's courses. They are not short. They take real time, 1 year to 1.5 years, even 2 years per course, because you're asking the student to become masterful in a given area of writing. Now, if your student is very intense about writing, they could get through faster any one of these individual courses. What we do when a student completes that 5th creative writing course, The Field, is we ask them 2 questions, and their answers to these questions will determine whether or not that student should continue into a master's course in writing. The questions we ask are, first, do you want to continue with writing? Now, if your student says no, they should stop. They should not continue with creative writing and not do the master's program. That's perfectly fine. By the time they've completed Creative Writing 4, they're going to be a far better writer than they were. They're going to be far more able to communicate in writing than most people ever learn to do, and they really don't need to continue training as a writer if they're not going to be a professional. But if your student says yes, you need to ask them then the second question. The second question is, which of these areas in which master's courses are offered in writing, which one do you want to start with? You don't ask them which one they want to do, because they may want to do more than one. You have students who want to write screenplays and plays, lyrics and poetry and novels. A creative writer may have many interests in many areas in which they wish to write. What you're asking the student is, which one of these courses would he like to start with? and then you let them start with it and go. A student who's very determined to get through the screenwriter's course may do it in 3 or 4 months and be ready to learn another area of expertise for a writer and do another master's course. This is more than fine. It provides that student numerous ways to make a living as a writer if in fact they determine to do so. That gives you an overview of our creative writing program. We hope you'll look at the samples we offer you on our site of each of these courses. We hope you'll consider our creative writing program for your student. We think that if you do, you'll be very happy with the results. We have many, many wonderful success stories over the years. People have told us that their student wasn't interested in writing and now they're writing. And I have to tell you, as a writer, nothing makes me happier. So we hope you'll take a look at this program, and thank you very much for your time.